Hey, welcome to the Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer. On this show, I interview the movers and shakers in the world of property development and real estate. Now, before we dive in, just a very quick word. This show is brought to you by a new visual technology that's quietly making waves in the property industry. Developers are using it, are cutting edge design costs, and accelerating off plan sales in ways that almost sound too good to be true. If you are curious, message me directly below at Glen Palmer Secure or check out the show notes below. Now, today on Blueprints to Buildings, my guest is Joe Savage. So he is the founder and CEO of Savage Projects. Now, he brings 40 years of CEO, COO leadership into SMEs by stepping in as a flexible board level member partner who stabilizes operations and sharpens decision making and unlocks profitable, scalable growth. Joe, it is an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Welcome. Thanks for taking time out to have a chat. And yeah, shall we dive in?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to share and to meet new people.
Excellent. So this is something that I always ask my guests, and it's if time travel became a reality and you had a chance to go back in time to when you first started your career, what advice would the person that you are now tell your younger self?
Listen more probably would be the most. I was always an ambitious guy. I always wanted more, 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 but did too much talking and didn't listen enough. So I suppose I would have moved my career on a lot faster if I listened to what other people had to say, more experienced people and people where I was wanted to be in life where. So I suppose that would be message number one is listen more.
Yeah. Oh, what an excellent answer. Because to be honest, when you're young, you think you know all the answers, and you never sort of listen to other
Yes,
people,
indeed.
are you? So yeah. So you spent decades running companies from the ground up, and now you're parachuting into SMEs as their part-time CEO or COO. So when you first walk into a business, what are the early tells that something is not quite working, and how do you steady that ship?
I suppose put a little bit of context on it. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm working with, I suppose, 3 to 50 million SME contractors who from not just main contractors or general contractors, but specialist contractors as well. And the first thing that I see, I work mostly with the founders, the owners, and a lot of them have been in business for anything from 6, 7 years to 30 years.
Hmm.
Um, but they have different sets of backgrounds and different perspectives. But mostly the same thing is prevalent when you go and meet them for the first time, and it's usually just frustration.
Yeah.
By the time they've picked the phone up and called me, they've banged their heads off a wall so many times that they need another perspective on it. So the first thing I see is frustration. I met with a guy not so long ago. He is a contractor. He's been in business for 7, 8 years now. He's in the fit out business in Dublin, and he
Hmm.
specializes in fit out, but also in energy retrofits. But we were on the third floor of the business, and when I first met him, I met him on a site where he was doing a refurbishment of a building and doing it stage through different floors depending on the day. It was a live building. And to be
Hmm.
honest with you, there was a big window next to us, and I thought the guy was going to jump out the window. He was actually so frustrated. He just wanted it to stop. He just wanted to get rid of the pain. He was making good money now. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was turning over 7 million. You know, he was telling me he was making good margins.
Hmm.
But it was a job that owned him, and I say job rather than business in the sense that it took over his whole life. He'd spend his whole days organizing stuff, and then he'd spend all of the night reorganizing it because people didn't do what they said they would do, and guys weren't trained to do what he expected of them. And he was a little bit, I suppose, to some degree, responsible for his own frustration in the sense that he couldn't let go. He was a real sort of micromanager. It was his baby, and he wasn't going to let it fail. So he was all over everything and didn't let go. So
Yeah.
that was, I suppose, the first thing that I see. And how do you go and steady that ship? a little bit of what I call discovery, a little bit of understanding the business, looking at his people, his team, and his systems and structures. And I don't look to put all of the things that should be there to start with. I look at finding the pain points, the urgent pain points. And in this particular organization, he had 7 projects on the go. He had 7 site managers who were tradesmen, very good tradesmen, knew their business, knew how to do what they did, but didn't know how to manage. They were literally
Yeah.
taking direction from him every hour of every day. So the first thing that we did, just to steady that ship, and it varies depending on the company, but just to steady that ship, we put a very simple look ahead program situation in place where he was just teaching the guys how to make a plan for 2 weeks, report on that plan, record on that plan. And literally that was it. We put a 2 week program together, a site diary together, so they were now sitting down and thinking about what's going to happen for the next 2 weeks. That had never happened before, however strange that may seem. So in that case, we put a very simple 2 week look ahead, site diary, reporting mechanism in place, as simple as that. We did that not through an automated system. I just made up an Excel spreadsheet for them because you're talking about guys who rarely ever switched on a computer in their life, and if they did it to
Yeah.
watch Netflix. They're using tools that to build a business and to work in a business and managing processes. This is not their bag, but they've
Yeah.
all rallied very well to that, and that's helped him dramatically. And one of the things he said to me only the other day in a meeting was that he's the stress levels have gone right down. He now has 50% of his time back, and he's now getting creative and finding other ways to generate revenue from his clients. And he was
Yeah.
doing that, in fact, when I went to meet him last Thursday. So that's the first thing I do. I try to find the pain point, get the immediate pain away from the guy who's working 18-hour days so that he can have what I call management contingency. That's time to think, time to look in the mirror and think, what am I doing? How am I doing? What I'm doing? And that's the first thing I would do.
Yeah.
Depends on the company now. It depends on the company.
Yeah. And now you've seen more business cycles than most founders have had hot dinners, to be honest. So, from your vantage point, what's changing how SMEs need to operate if they want to stay competitive over the next 5 to 10 years? What do you think they should be doing?
Well, I suppose the first thing that I suppose you expect me to say is they should be embracing AI, and they should be, but it's not top of the list. What the people I'm dealing with are either, I mean, I'm dealing with another company who are 30-ish years in business. They have a turnover on almost 40 million. Recently been acquired by an international business. I won't say any more than that because it's not my place to share their stuff. But they were
Mm,
acquired by a large billion-dollar international conglomerate in recent months, and because they have an alignment with that particular business, and they're looking to grow that business from the 30 odd million to 100 million.
yeah,
Only the challenge is that you can get a business to a certain level with grunt, with grind, with screaming, shouting, hollering, and howling, and with some basic rudimentary systems and some good people, but people for a certain type of business. When you want to scale to the next level, you've got to look at everything. So the first thing that I think people should do is sit at a whiteboard, get a big blank piece of paper, and look at your strategy. Why are you doing what you're doing? Because a lot of people are just doing it because we're doing it and we've been doing it for a long time, so we're going to continue to do it and it makes money, but I don't see an end to it, but hey, it's making money.
yeah,
So why are you doing it? So try to get people to plan or to strategically think about what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, and how long they're going to do what they're doing. Um, so I suppose that's the first thing. So why the strategy? What is it all about? What are we getting out of bed for? Why are we working 18-hour days? What's that about? What's
yeah,
the end game? If there isn't an end game, what's the 2 to 5 year game?
yeah,
So I say the first thing people need to do, and a lot of people have been in business for many, many years and never sat down and thought about why they're doing what they're doing, other than the money. I mean, let's be honest, that's what we work for, yeah?
yeah,
People
yeah,
get up out of
definitely.
bed in the morning and they've been getting up out of bed in the morning and making money. And people who own businesses or businesses own them make good money. but they can't
Yeah.
let go. So the first thing I try to get people to do is to strategize their business and then look at how do you make yourself redundant? How do you put the right systems and structures and people, an organization in place to make yourself redundant? Then you can choose to sell it or keep it or do something else or play golf or whatever you want to do. So
Yeah.
that really is where it all starts for me. You've got to know your why. Why are you doing this? What's it about?
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
just be to keep doing what you've been doing.
Yeah. I mean, and the why is understanding your why is a really pivotal point because if you don't understand your why, I think you're just, you're sailing in the darkness. You're not generating enough self-worth. You're not understanding the actual reason behind what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand your why, I don't think you can grow. So
No.
yeah, very, very
I mean,
good,
it's
important
intent.
part.
You've got to be doing something with intent.
Yeah.
What not, things happen to us a lot. I mean, if you look at people's careers, even mine, I mean, I wanted to be an architect. I know you said in your note about being an architect. I wanted to be an architect. When I left college or when I left school, I wanted to be an architect. I couldn't spell architect, but I wanted to be one.
Hmm.
I didn't really know what they did, but it sounded very glamorous.
Yeah.
So I tried to get into college to study architecture. I was even an architectural draftsman for the first couple of years after I left college, working for a company here in Ireland doing works for the World Bank. And so I'm in architectural drafting. I wanted to be an architect,
Hmm.
but the powers to be decided I didn't have the aptitude or the skill set or whatever it was to be an architect. And it turns out they were right. I wasn't
Yeah.
happy about it back then, so I went into construction management. But that kind of happened to me as opposed to was my plan. And I made it my plan as I've always been a very practical, put the ducks in a row kind of guy. And I spent a lot of years, like a lot of people, moving from one thing to another because that was what was expected of you. But I think
Yeah.
having intent, I'm
Yeah.
doing it for a reason. This is my reason. And some people think that's wishy-washy, but it gives you focus and it gives you a reason to get up in the morning and it gives you purpose, and that's really important.
No, I 100% agree on that. 100%. So a lot of businesses across Ireland and the UK struggle with growth plateaus, as you've mentioned. There's talent shortages, there's supply chain issues, there's slower decision making. So what regional challenges do you see most often, and how do you help companies just break through that ceiling to get to that next level?
Well, I think it goes back to what we were just talking about, to be honest. There's one thing, doing what you're doing is another thing, knowing why you're doing it. And I think if you look at the challenges in the industry, if you look at the property challenges with the planning laws, with the situations in that regard, the skills shortage to some degree is a little bit of a misnomer. It's not that there isn't a skill shortage, there is a skill shortage, but
Mm,
if you have a strategy, if you have a plan and you have a structure, you can fill those gaps as a business, and you got to treat it as a business as opposed to an industry. You're really, if it's your business, you're interested in your business. You're not interested in the industry. Now, some people say they are, and I get that, but your main focus is your business. So getting back to this contractor I was talking to you about earlier on, who
yeah.
he has 7 projects on the go and 7 site managers, and none of them were ever trained to be site managers. They were a few months ago they were hanging doors or wiring houses. That's what they did. Now they're management. They know how technically it all goes together. So the way to do it is to focus on your why. Look at your plan. What is it? How am I moving forward? What am I looking to do? And then you fill those gaps for you. And every business looks after that, then you get where you need to go.
Hmm.
Example, I'm now teaching and training 7 guys how to be site managers. I'm not teaching them how to do detailed critical path analysis programs with 7,000 line items in it, cost loading them, and all of the stuff that can happen in contracting. I'm teaching them how to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to make seven site managers and a contracts manager for their business. So I think the answer to the question is look more locally than globally. Look at the
Yeah.
company specifically and give them the tools that they need to do what they do. Then slowly each of those people will grow and become more confident in their abilities, in their technical abilities, in their soft skills or whatever phraseology you use for management. So
Yeah.
I think the answer is that the skills shortage is the responsibility of the individual and the responsibility of the business. So if every business solved their own skill shortage problem by training people, by bringing people along, by managing their systems and structures and their workflow that suits what they do and put the resources that they need in place to do their business, you'll have a lot less problem across the world and across the board in terms of this,
Yeah.
looking to government or looking to whoever to solve the problem.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about uncovering the hidden losses in business. The messy workflows, the poor handovers, the decisions that get stuck.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through a real example where tightening visibility around the processes transformed performance?
Well, I think we did that just now. I think the the thing is that if a project, I mean, a building company is the sum of a load of projects all put together with some overhead.
Hmm.
That's what a building company is, or a construction company, a contracting company, to be more precise. So, from the perspective of how does a process improve things? One of the things that I teach people how to do is to sit down and do some basic planning.
Yeah.
Basic planning. Most programs, construction programs, Gantt charts, most of them are inadequate. They don't include all of the necessary steps. So we put together a program for these seven site managers. And each one of those site managers now has a program. And we made it very simple. We put drop-down menus. So if you look at the program, the workflow of what they do, they start off by having a kickoff meeting between their estimating department and which is the boss in the company because he's a QS by trade. So
Yeah.
they set off and they have a sit down meeting with the boss. So they have a tender handover meeting. So they hand over the documentation, the specifications, the master overall program, the procurement schedule, the do's and don'ts, the exclusions, and all of the stuff, and it's handed over in a very in a correct way with a proper structure. And then the site manager goes away, and with the tool we've given him, which is basically a very simple make your own plan tool, there's drop down menus. He literally sits down, which he's never done before, and works out what do I do first, second. They're everything from mobilization. We got drop down menus to cover from mobilization, which includes everything from putting your RAMs in place, putting your all of the things necessary, your
Hmm.
access and mobility, your egress from the building access, all of the stuff that's necessary so that you have a plan in place. And they go through that whole plan, and there's drop down menus so they can choose from one of them. And most of them, this one was set specifically for this business because they have a very specific business. It's not dramatically different to anybody else's. I mean, you do one thing and then you do the next and then you do the next, and that's a program if you put dates on it.
Yeah.
So we put tools in place, a simple tool in place so they could manage. And now they're enjoying the fact that they're sitting down and planning and putting it in place and organizing and going back to the boss saying, by the way, your plan doesn't work and wonderful stuff like that, which is great to see.
Yeah.
So the example, that example is probably the most poignant example because it's a very simple example. There are other ones where I've put commercial systems in place in companies that were managing with sort of not even monthly management accounts. They were managing with, I suppose, if I have more money in the bank account than I had yesterday, I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds a bit condescending, but there are a lot of companies that operate that way. If we've got cash in the bank, we're fine, not knowing whether those projects are going to make money or not money. So putting some very simple cost reporting, CVR type situations in place so that people can manage that, get that sorted first. So it depends on the business, but the example, I suppose, the most poignant example is I prepare and give tools to try and fix the pain points, particularly for that contractor, and that's
Yeah.
not unusual. It's very, very normal that the biggest challenge you have in any business is not enough people own what they're doing. And if you give them
Yeah.
tools and help them to give them tools and help them to manage, then it makes a big difference. As I said, the owner said to me, he has 50% more time to think, less stress on his plate, and now he's being creative. He's finding ways
And
to increase his revenue.
that's a massive thing because, I can't underestimate how much, when you have the time to sit back and think about things, that's when you can get more creative. And yeah, time is the one constant that we have in
Yeah.
life. And you don't want to be spending it doing 18 hours a day, trying to micromanage the whole business.
Firefighting.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, what you do is phenomenal. So, you've spent a year, you spent your career fixing companies from the inside. So then, when you were first walking to a business that's stuck struggling for whatever reason, how do you decide whether the problem is the team or if it's the owner? And how do you address that, especially if it's the owner?
It's mostly the owner, in fairness, without being disrespectful, um, because they're in the deep end. A lot of
Yeah.
the owners that I work with have never run a business before they started that business, and they've never even been in senior management in the business until they started that business. And that's not a bad thing, but they have no benchmark to understand what they're doing. They just do what they know they need to do. Common sense tells me that I do this and do this and do this, and they find themselves very, very rapidly firefighting. They win a project, then they win another project, then they're trying to find people. People are hard to find, so you need to teach them, train them, or give them simple tools to help them fill the gap between their experience and their abilities. So very often, without being disrespectful, and most accept this after a period of time, it's very hard for them to accept it in the beginning. But generally speaking, owners have a tendency to baby their people. They tend to micromanage their people, not because they don't trust them, but because they're vested in this. This is
Yeah.
their baby. If this goes wrong, the client's only ringing them, nobody else.
Yeah.
And they stand a chance of losing the house, and the wife is not happy about that idea. So, you know, owners, they get themselves into these downward spirals and they dig holes for themselves. Very often you'll find that I give you another quick example. I had an owner one time, and we were going through some strategy stuff with him, and he had about 10 projects on the go, and he was doing probably about 25 million in turnover in euro here in Ireland, in various different locations. Too many locations, too far away from each other. Logistics wasn't high on his. He was just
Mhm.
saying yes to everything. So he had a lot of projects on the go. But the thing was that I said he had two contracts managers who were looking after the projects, and then there was him. And what was happening was that I said to him just as a throwaway when we finished the meeting, I was heading off. I says, "What are you doing for the rest of the day?" And he had promoted a guy to a contracts manager role. He was looking after three projects, not very big projects, very simple projects, easily within the wheelhouse of this project contracts manager. And he says, "I'm going to his sites this afternoon." I said, "Why?" One of them was being handed over in a month, another was being handed over, I don't know, 3 months, and the other one had a longer period of time. I said, "Why are you going?" "Well, they need to see me." I said, "Who says they need to see you? What you need to do with him is let him alone. If you don't believe he can do the job, fire him. Otherwise, let him alone. Let him do the job. Let him make a few mistakes because that's the only way you learn.
Yeah.
So imagine, say to him this, in a week before the handover, invite me like I'm the client to come along and do an inspection. He just couldn't let that go. Oh, I don't know if it, oh, I don't know if it. I said, look, you're never going to be free from this if you do everything yourself.
Yeah.
You're also going to send a note and a message to your staff. I don't trust you. You'll say you trust them, but when you turn up, they'll know you don't. So let go. So very often the challenge is that the owners, for good reasons, let's be honest, it does, it's their money, it's their livelihood, it's their reputation. But teaching and coaching them is almost more important than any system or structure that I would put in place for them.
Yeah. And you know what the crazy thing is, Joe, is I bet you when they started out their business, the reason they started out was for the lifestyle to go and play golf and do this and but
Freedom.
as they progressed and as they got more, they took more in-house and they forgot about that dream, about what they wanted to do and why they wanted to start this business. It's a weird one, and I see it quite often. I see it, people they're wanting that dream, they're wanting that lifestyle. I mean, that's the reason why we go into business by ourselves, is to have that that
Freedom. Freedom.
that dream and that goal. But yet, somewhere along the way, we sort of get lost, and we end up
Yeah.
doing 18 hours a day, which is crazy, but it's phenomenal what you do.
Sometimes
Anyway,
just the trees is the biggest challenge.
yeah. Well, that's all we've got for today's show. Massive thanks to my listeners, of course, and also to my great guest, Joe, for joining me on the show. Joe, really good chatting to you, learning from your experience as
Do.
part of C-Suite. Before we sign off, Joe, if someone wanted to know more about you, if someone needed your help at Savvy Projects Limited, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, they can get in contact with me via my LinkedIn profile, which is probably where I'm most active. They can also get in contact with me via savvyprojects.ie.
Hmm.
Um, and all of my contact details are there. But LinkedIn profile probably the most active place that I operate on.
Yeah.
So that's where they can get in contact with me. So it's just simple savvyprojects.ie.
Excellent. Joe, thank you very much. And before we go, quick nod to the tech backing the show. The one changing how developments are visualized and sold. I didn't name it for a reason. Message me if you want to know now. Thanks for tuning in to Blueprints to Buildings. I'm your host, Glen Palmer. It was an absolute pleasure interviewing Joe Savage. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.